Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and fans of all ages. As you'll notice, Greg is not with us yet tonight. I hope he shows up soon. Welcome to the newest edition of the Five Heart Podcast, where we're going to talk Nebraska sports. And since it's John and I, we're going to talk about something very near and dear to us. It will be a surprise. So, introducing the founder of Corn Nation, my good friend, John Johnston. John, are the mosquitoes as big as parakeets up in Minnesota yet?
You know, it's they haven't shown up. It's been a really cool intro to summer so far. I mean, it's been in the 60s and 70s, so not a lot of mosquitoes yet. I've even been outside a little bit.
Well, that makes life tolerable in Minnesota in the summertime if you don't have mosquitoes, because that's really about the only negative of being in Minnesota in the summer, isn't it?
Yes.
Because those are big flipping mosquitoes.
They are, and it gets to be a pain. Although I haven't noticed them as much lately, but maybe that's just because I forgot about everything. My God, when it's this bright, everybody can see how freaking messy my room is. We're going back to coolness. For anybody watching on YouTube, it's now much darker in my room, and you can't see the shit all over the floor and in the background. And well, you can, whatever. I turned 60, Todd.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. You turned 60 on June 6th. That'd be D-Day.
Yeah.
So obviously you were not there when the beaches in Normandy were stormed.
That's because they wouldn't let me go.
They wouldn't let you go.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And you were just a twinkle in a young man's eye at that point in time.
He was in the Pacific Theater.
Pacific Theater. Okay.
Yeah, he was in New Guinea, and there was a list of islands. I used to have a canteen or something of his. Anyway, yeah, he fought in the Pacific Theater.
Well, so what? Now that you've turned 60, I turned 60 back in November, and at least I'm pretty sure it was 60. I was off on my age for about 5 or 6 years. For some reason, I thought I was a year older than I really was, and then I did the math. And that was a really good feeling when I discovered I was actually a year younger than what I thought I was. So now that you've turned 60, what's the biggest eye opener or the epiphany that you've now had that you're the big 6-0?
That I'm still here.
Yeah.
And it's not even because I was dead once from a heart attack. I mean, come on, Todd, you saw me through college. You know damn well pretty much if we'd had a whole list of friends, including those that knew me like in high school, and they would have said, what guy is most likely to die in a really stupid accident by 30? And then after you were 30, 45, and then 50, and then 60, every fucking one of you would have voted for me.
Well,
it.
I do have to say, now that you mention that, if we were to, kind of take our crew that we had back in college, the scum of the earth bunch, if we were to take them and then, kind of include the hangers on and that type of thing and rank who did we think would probably bite the dust the soonest? Yeah, I'd have to say, John, you probably would have been towards the top of that list.
Yeah.
I think that Carl Barlow and Kenny, whatever his name is, they might have been
true.
And Pat, those two golfers, I'll tell you what, they destroyed my image of what a golfer is.
We probably shouldn't go into any stories about that.
Probably no. They are not here to defend themselves. Yeah. No, that would.
Let's just suffice it to say that, okay, what's next on the agenda? No, I think 60, I guess I don't know if there's any big lesson to take away from it, except for, I tell younger people this, and since this is an old person show, I'm going to tell more. I hope young people are listening to this. You need to realize that when you're like, and I told, what I got to, my I think she's my great niece, sent me a photo of her son, who would be my great great nephew, I think, right? In football pads. And she said, first day of football practice. And when I had my family reunion in Kansas, I argued with this kid about playing football. And it's the only sport available to him, I think, in Shelton or near Shelton. But I said, you need to play a sport. Otherwise, you're just going to sit around your ass and become a blob.
Right.
Because was there any sports other than football? Small town Nebraska probably doesn't have a huge variety. But at the last day I was around him, I looked at him. He's sitting across from me at the dinner table. We're in this restaurant. I looked at him and I said, okay, since nothing else has convinced you, I'll pay you $50 if you play football and you complete the season. Bam, there he was. He was going to play football. But I looked at him and I said, when I was a sophomore in high school, in between my sophomore and junior years, I started lifting weights. And I lifted enough weights that there was a huge difference in playing football the next year. But most importantly, I got my body into shape. And because I was that strong when I was young, it kept me strong into my 30s. And I think the key is if you want to get to 60, and I have a lot of friends that are like getting knee replacements and hip replacements. And my friend Brent wants to get his shoulders replaced. He played college football, beat himself to death, but and he's done. Well, he's crazy. Anyway, I mean, if you want to keep in shape, that's what you want. You don't want to turn into a 60-year-old person that can't do a lot of stuff physically. No, you need to take care of yourself when you're 30. So when you're 45, you can still do stuff. And when you're 40, you need to have the body you want when you're going to be 55 and 60, because, this shit does matter.
No, I think you're making some really good points there. And back when I was in high school, I was a 3 or 4 sport athlete, and kept in really good shape. Like a lot of, you're a teenage boy, and if you're out for athletics and working on farms, throwing hay and all that kind of stuff all summer, you're going to be in pretty good natural shape. But I agree with you on the whole weightlifting thing. When I really got into it, going into my sophomore year in high school, it definitely made a difference for me as far as how I could compete. But as I look at life right now, I had a physical about 3 weeks ago. Because we moved, I need to establish a new doctor. And, you kind of start by going in and having a consultation and a physical and that type of thing. I will say I am heavier than I have been, basically at any point in my life, which is frustrating. But I do exercise daily. I've been picking up my pace on the treadmill, lift weights at least 4 days a week. And, when the doctor, who's probably about nearly 20 years younger than me, he says, so just generally, how do you feel? And, honestly, at 60 years old, I feel physically, mentally, emotionally, I feel the best that I've felt since my teenage years, honestly.
Wow.
It's even though I'm way overweight, and there are times, when the old feet and the knees and the legs are a little tired of walking up all these steps because I'm carrying this extra lard. I really do feel better. Now I figure if I can get some of that off, who knows what's going to happen. But I think, John, both of us, I've had a definite change in career, in the last couple of years, where anybody would tell you that being a high school principal is probably one of the most stressful occupations that there is, and it's pretty tough. You've worked in an industry where at times, your stress level has been incredibly high. I think you've made some lifestyle changes you've been forced to make some lifestyle changes. But, I think there's really a lot to be said about, the impact that stress has on a person's overall health. And I guess, the way I kind of look at it right now, what is there for me to be stressed about? And, I think that's probably the big epiphany that I've had, at least in terms of my own health recently. So, and like you, I remember when a good old Doc Pigneri was the doctor I went to when I was a kid. And we were in there one time because I had an issue with the knee, and I remember Doc Pigneri telling my mom, "Well, Mrs. Wolverton, your son's probably going to count on multiple surgeries before it's all over. He is so loose jointed, and with all the wear and tear that he's been putting on his body," he says, "I'm not sure it's all going to hold together." Well, Doc Pigneri was wrong. I've had a knee surgery, but it was just a very minor one, but nothing with my shoulders, nothing with my hips, nothing with my knees. Knock on wood. I'm not going to have any fake parts when I bite the dust. So.
God, I think the goal is to stay as healthy as you can so you can do as much as you can. And then in that one moment when you're walking on a trail in northern Minnesota and you see the bear that's going to end your life, you can fight that son of a bitch to a draw. That's what I'm looking for.
Oh, heck. Well,
so what's going on in the world? Oh, you know what we did for my birthday is we went out and played disc golf.
You did.
Because my son Noah, my oldest son, he's into disc golf, and he has like 8,300 discs, and he knows about how all they turn and they fly and they do this and that. So he's bought us all discs, and then he tortures us by playing us in disc golf and crushing us into the ground.
Beating you badly. And
it would, it was fun because I didn't suck as horribly as I usually do. So I think that I might try to spend the rest of the summer playing one round of disc golf every weekend or something. I mean, I'll suck, but you don't get to throw balls in the water. I guess you throw discs in the water.
Well, this new place that we're living, I mean, you stand out on the balcony of this place, and you look right over the fence to a golf course, and we've yet to get out there. But that is something that I want to start, take up once again. It's been a long time since I've played more than one round of golf a year. And the interesting thing is, we've sat out there and watched a lot of twosomes and foursomes go by. And I'm really surprised on this golf course, the percentage of people that are actually walking the course or, pulling
right.
their little pull carts and not in the motorized carts. Really quite surprised. So good on them and the way to get some extra. Let's talk a little bit about Nebraska.
Okay.
It's that slow time of year. And, before we get into football, something just popped into my head. There was news from the baseball front. I just want to mention these real quick. We've talked baseball a lot recently and we've had some pretty good discussions on Corn Nation and that type of thing. But one of the players that we were really hoping would return, one of the seniors, has chosen not to, and that's pitcher Koty Frank. And it sounds like he's going to look for some other opportunities. Aaron, one of our baseball writers, is speculating that maybe he isn't. It doesn't look like he'll have a starting spot, or that he'll contend for a starting spot coming up next year, and he might want that elsewhere. But that one's a disappointment to me. Koty Frank is one of those guys that, why he didn't have an all-star season, but doggone it, that guy pitched very well at times. So,
pretty dependable.
Yeah, very dependable. And
Ben 10 didn't know his name.
Exactly. Frank Koty. Yeah. And then the other news, two other pieces of news from the baseball front this week. Cam Chick, who had announced that he was ending his baseball career and was going to hang around Nebraska and finish up his degree, has said now that he's going to enter the portal and look for an opportunity to play another year. And then Braxton Bragg, who had announced that he was leaving the program a couple weeks ago, he's ended up down at Dallas Baptist, which.
Oh, is that where he went? I looked at DBU and I thought, what the hell is that? Dallas Baptist isn't a slouch.
No, that's good baseball. That's good baseball down there. Yeah. Yeah. He's landed in a good spot. So, but back to on the football front, Nebraska had their first Friday Night Lights, whatever extravaganza where they brought in all these recruits.
It's a camp.
Camp. Okay.
Camp.
Friday Night Lights camp.
They
Where
had
they-
s'mores.
And with those s'mores, it kind of makes it easier to catch the football because you get all that sticky marshmallowy stuff all over it. So they've had a lot of big name recruits on campus, it sounds like, and Nebraska did pick up a new commitment from Scotts Bluff. Looks like an offensive lineman by the name of Brock Knutson. Played at Mitchell for 3 years, I guess, before transferring to Scotts Bluff. And what do you know about Brock Knutson, John?
I think he was, what was he? 6'7", 270 pounds. So it looks like he could put a lot more weight on his frame. Offensive tackle. I think he was ranked the 6th best player in Nebraska. There seems to be a lot of Nebraska players, or a lot of kids that are getting noticed in Nebraska, where most of the time they just kind of went by. And I suppose if I followed recruiting a lot closer, we do need a recruiting writer at Corn Nation. Please apply. That we would know why that is. But I mean, there's not really a lot to say about him other than, let's see, 712th overall player in the nation, 6th in the state of Nebraska, 49th best offensive tackle nationally, a 3-star recruit, beat out Kansas, Miami of Ohio, Arizona State, North Dakota State, South Dakota State. I guess, let's see what he can do. He's a lineman.
He's one of those big raw Nebraska kids. And
yeah.
I didn't realize it until I ran across an article that, while Nebraska, recruits nationally and, has pursued over the years some big name offensive linemen. When it actually comes to Nebraska players, offensive linemen that go into the NFL, at least recently, they've been Nebraska kids. Cam Jurgens being the most recent, that who was drafted this last year. But that is kind of interesting. And, when you look at the next few years, some of the bigger names, I guess, or higher ranked offensive linemen that are on the team are in fact Nebraska natives.
Yeah, I don't even think about any. The only thing I'm thinking about when it comes to football.
What are you thinking about?
Northwestern. That's it. That's the only thing that
matters,
exists.
isn't it?
Yes, that is it. That is the only thing that matters right now. You can look ahead and go, well, we'll be 6-0. Going, fuck you. You're not. Don't do that shit. I was with a bunch of people who, my coworkers, where we had a pizza party, because whenever I'm around, they have to have a pizza party. And they were like asking me, what do you think about Nebraska football? And I thought, it's fucking June. I don't even think about that shit until August, because, otherwise you got to spend 2 months going, when's it going to be here? When's it going to be here? And it's exhausting.
Well, I concur with you, John. And, we all know what it's like in the off season, and, particularly the print media that we all follow pretty close. And they always have to come up with some kind of storyline to keep Nebraska football in front of the fan base. But I have found it interesting how there have been some of these, there have been a number of articles recently about how strategic Scott Frost has been in his off season and his decision making. And, I'm with you. Say all you want, bringing in 5 new coaches, 15 kids through the portal, all of these changes. And, there is something to be excited about. I mean, no question.
The players look great. They really do.
The players do look great. You kind of hope that the offense can mesh. They're kind of marrying 2 systems together. You got to hope that the players can grasp it and execute it. And let's face it, John, every year, most fans are pretty optimistic about what's going to happen. And I just think that's human nature. But the bottom line is none of it makes a rat's ass bit of difference if they don't go over to Ireland and beat Northwestern.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah,
And
it's really where it is.
I could care less if it's by 1 point or, if it's by 20 points or whatever. It really doesn't matter. And I could care less about how Nebraska looks. Remember back in the days, John, when
back in the days,
when people were arguing about style points, Nebraska might put up 56 points and win 56-10. But it wasn't a good 56 points. It was a bad 56 point. Remember those days?
Yes. People would be pissed off if we didn't just destroy somebody. And who was it? Dale Klein, 7 field goals against Missouri one time. Everybody was pissed off and basically said, that's a loss. You can't win games by kicking field goals. This isn't even a win. Like, fuck, kiss my ass. It's still, 7 field goals, I think it was, against Missouri. 7 times 3 is 21, right?
Yes.
I can't remember how many points they had, but that game sticks out. Have you seen that Adrian Martinez is just talking about his Kansas State team and everybody thinks he's talking smack about Nebraska?
Yeah, that's laughable. I mean, what is Adrian Martinez, the perceived QB1 at Kansas State? What is he supposed to be talking about? What is he supposed to be saying? I mean, if he isn't saying things like, this is the most talented team I've been around, what's he supposed to say? Well, these guys are pretty good, but they're not as talented as the Nebraska team that I played with the last few years. Is that really? I mean, really? That's what you expect to hear Adrian Martinez say?
Yeah, I don't get the fucking sensitive slacks by everybody. I mean, somebody posted in our Slack, a quote from him, "I want to win. That's why I came to Kansas State." Well, okay, that's probably not why he went to Texas. I guess I don't get the animosity toward the guy. I think it was a good idea for him to lose. I think he needed one season somewhere else to just, let's see if he can win at Kansas State. I'm all for the guy. Stop being so fucking sensitive about everything he said. He's not even our guy anymore.
I'm all for him too. I'll be rooting for him. And,
that means you're rooting for Kansas State.
That's fine. I'll root for Kansas State.
It's a voice from beyond something.
Greg.
Hi, guys.
You sound like you're not only in Carlsbad cabin, but like at the very far end of it, and your phone is at the other end.
I'm sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I was sitting here waiting for you all to introduce me and say, hey, welcome to the show. But apparently I just got to take
we don't have your hosting skills, Greg.
Well, that's apparent, Todd.
Plus that you kept going in and out there. From my standpoint as the host, all I kept seeing was your audio connecting and reconnecting.
Well, on my end, it said that I was muted, so I kept trying to unmute myself, and it never worked. So and then it says the host would like you to unmute. So apparently you had me muted, John, and I had
John
to wait
was
for you
muting you, Greg. John was doing it on purpose.
I did. I muted him.
I knew it. He's been
I muted you.
Trying to silence me from the beginning.
Because what I kept hearing was that same. I did that to my boss the other day. Yeah, I did. I was talking to him and I got tired of talking to him and I just went, "Oh God, your connection's breaking up," and then I hung up on him.
So the good news is I should be home within 10 minutes and able to jump on the computer and rejoin this conversation already in progress.
Okay,
Greg.
But yes, Todd.
Yeah, well, since you're here and since we've been talking about Adrian Martinez,
yes,
and both of us are kind of the opinion that the Nebraska fans that are being critical of statements attributed to him are just simply thin-skinned.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to chime in on. It's funny, and look, I'm going to piss off a lot of people here, but it's funny, the people who are getting upset and offended by his comments, like you said, what are you expecting to say, are the same people who jump into comment sections and call people snowflakes for being offended by everything.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, for God's sakes, you hit it the nail on the head. What is he supposed to go to his new school? Like, yeah, I sure do wish I had that receiving room from Lincoln. So no, he's got to go. He's got to be excited. You wouldn't change jobs. And when asked about it, by I guess media is, unrealistic because nobody, gives a crap if you're going from company A to company B, if it's not, if you don't have a spotlight. But you're not going to, switch teams in a corporate setting and then, go by like, yeah, I'm kind of really wishing that I would have stuck it out over there, before you get settled in at your new place. It's unrealistic for fans to expect that. You wouldn't want Casey Thompson to come out and say, yeah, no, I kind of think I made a mistake. It's the same damn thing. And for people to, be so up in arms about it, it's like, get off the cross. We need the fucking wood.
Wow.
That's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah.
Well, it just kind of blows my mind, but it would be interesting if someone were to kind of do a deep dive into the diverse and somewhat schizophrenic Nebraska fan base.
That's been the nature of Corn Nation throughout its existence.
There you go. And
we have been both diverse and schizophrenic.
There you go. Yeah. Well, John and I have a college friend that did write a book about the Nebraska fan base called Huskerville, but I don't know that. I think that it's more focused on the commitment and dedication and passion that fans have. But holy smokes. I mean.
Well, and let's not forget, while we're talking about projects the fans have put out on Husker fans, let's not forget about our good friend Ryan and his documentary Through These Gates.
I'm sorry, I was looking at a Twitter thing from Steve Sipple that was
Jesus, John.
What? I'm sorry.
Through These Gates from our buddy Ryan Tweedy.
Yeah.
From formerly of the Big Red Cobcast. It's out there. It's tremendous. It's all about Husker fandom. But I don't know. The problem is, and I'm not saying that we're fair weather. I'm not saying we're wishy-washy, but because this identity of the state ebbs and flows with the success of one college sports team, then you're either at the peak or in the valley. And there's no, and look, I get excited. Right when I jumped in to the call, you're talking about, John, I think you said that you're not caring about anything except Northwestern, and you don't even care about that until August. But I'm a person, I tend to drink the Kool-Aid. I always tend to be a little bit more on the optimistic side. I realized that after 20 years of, disappointment, that what used to be that mentality where it used to be the rule is somewhat, tinkering on being the exception. And like, I'm not here to tell anybody how to fan, that's not my place. That's not my job. And at the end of the day, I don't care. But I hope that I haven't harped on this. I hope that I haven't brought it up too much to make people uncomfortable. But I learned a real important lesson in September of 2017 when we lost Brian. I hate referencing it all the time because I don't want anybody to think that I'm bringing it up for but like there's so much more to life than the success and or failures of a college football team, even one as beloved and important to us all as Nebraska, you know? So I don't, I at the end of the day, I don't know what to make of Husker fandom in totality, but to hit the nail on the head when you said schizophrenic.
I can't. The reason I don't get excited until August is because I can't keep it up that long. There is no blue chew for optimism about football. It's just flat out, it doesn't work that way. It's kind of like, okay, I got enough energy for us. Big Ten media days is when I start going, okay, how does the things really look realistically? But people want to talk about it year round. But I can't.
Well,
I can't maintain the level of energy
and to that
to be optimistic.
And it's unfortunate. Like I know, you know, as I mentioned, the identity kind of being, you know, it's what we hung our hat on for so long. But now you have so many other options. Like you have a world-class volleyball program. You have a softball program that's done tremendous things. You have women's basketball that has, yes, ebbed and flowed, but they played, you know, tremendously. So you don't have to isolate on the one specific sport. You know, just be like Husker sports in general, and you're going to find a lot of things to cheer about.
I agree with that.
So, and, Todd, what's the next topic?
Well, are you transitioning, or are you still with us?
I am going to be moving to the laptop. Yes.
That's what I meant.
Speaking of transitioning, Steve Sipple recently transitioned from the Lincoln Journal, whatever they are now, to On3. Apparently, like Sean Callahan and a whole bunch of people decided to leave where they were at for a very long time and go to a new platform. And Steve Sipple tweets tonight that Turner Corcoran said, Coach Raiola's terms are you want your defender to be 10 yards away from the line of scrimmage or on his back. It was one of the first things he said to us in December when he got to campus. And Sip's comment is, that's a mentality shift. Where's that? Wait, does Greg Austin tell him to fall down on their fucking legs? Is he reaching? I mean, that's a giant, if you're going to write a column about that, it's kind of like just, I don't know. That's why I don't get excited about shit until August, because you're honestly picking at tiny fucking shit like that to build a column off of. And honestly, it's crap, because your last offensive line coach did not say, oh, be sure to fall down and not block anybody in the first 2 steps off the line. You know what I mean? 10 yards away from the line of scrimmage or on his back is pretty much a standard line from any offensive line coach that's ever existed. So that's my ranty bit. There you go.
Well, offensive line is the aspect of the game that I have the least knowledge about from a technical standpoint. And while I concur with you, John, I do recall a big brouhaha at a school where I was employed as a principal when the established coaching staff used a zone blocking scheme. And in fact, the offensive line coach at that particular high school, each summer, he would go to the University of Iowa and to Iowa State and spend time with those coaches there. And it wasn't so much that he was learning from them, it was that they were sharing ideas. And since his retirement, he's written a couple of books on offensive line play. Maybe I should buy a book so I'd learn about it. But anyway, someone new criticized his the type of offensive line play they had, because the boys weren't blasting, off the line of scrimmage and weren't driving. They were it was very important for them to be technically sound and in the right spot and to take the right steps and that type of thing. So I know there is at least a little bit of a different philosophy. So
Can you see that?
I can see that.
Can you read what it is?
It's something line. I can't read the assembly line. That would be by Milt Tenneper.
It's signed to me. Anyway, I was going to do a YouTube video on this book. It is Milt Tenneper's The Assembly Line book, and it's all about offensive line blocking. It's kind of interesting. I think I'll do a YouTube video on this because it is an offensive line blocking book, and he goes through all of the stuff that made the Osborne teams kick ass. I'll save a bunch of it for the YouTube video.
There you go. Well, Greg, before we started recording, John and I talked about something we were going to talk about tonight. And I suggested that each of us come up with 3 things about college football from when we were growing up that are gone that we miss. And if you want to play along, and if you can come up with a few things at spur of the moment, something that you liked about college football back when you were a kid that aren't around anymore, you can join in and play.
Well,
there you go.
I'm still working on the laptop, or working on getting to the laptop.
What can you think of? Let's start. We'll just kind of do a round robin 3 times around.
Okay. You want me to go first?
Well, let's start with John.
Thank you.
John.
Well, I said winning, and you said that was too easy.
That's like
Was it
Husker.
too easy?
Well, I wasn't thinking specific to Nebraska football,
Right?
But I was thinking in general. What were some things that you remember about college football from when you were a kid that you missed?
Lyle Bremser.
Okay, expand on that a little bit.
Well, I mean, when I was a kid, I mean, you have to realize people now, every game is on TV. I mean, not just for Nebraska, but every team everywhere, every game is on TV. And that was rarely the case when Todd and I was young. And I mean, you usually had like 1 or 2 games on a year,
right, on
one of the 3 channels we got. And of course, every year it was Oklahoma, Nebraska had to be on TV. Ohio State, Michigan was a game I always watched when I was young. Notre Dame was on TV a lot because they're Notre Dame. But Notre Dame, because you didn't have the games on the TV, you had to have a really good radio guy. Right. And Lyle Bremser, when you were young, it was incredible at announcing the games. And I think that part is missing, where a guy with just his voice could let you feel like you were in the stadium, have the emotion, set the emotion of the game. And, I can remember, like, my small town of Curtis, we have a fall festival every year, and people would be moving around, and you'd hear Lyle Bremser's voice come up on the radio, and everybody literally would stop like they were in some kind of magic spell. They would just stop what they were doing to hear what Lyle Bremser was saying is, Nebraska scored another touchdown, and of course his most famous call is the Johnny Rogers tore him loose from their shoes game of the century in 1971 against Oklahoma.
Got him jumping in the aisle or dancing in the aisle, something like that.
Yeah. But he had such a, a way, that wasn't his only phrases. I mean, he came up with stuff all the time that was just amazing as a radio announcer. And I think, I don't know, a simpler time, Todd.
Yeah, no, I completely concur. At the time Lyle Bremser was around, I was not a Nebraska fan. And so while this isn't one of my 3 things, I can relate to that because Pete Taylor was the voice of the Iowa State Cyclones. And you couldn't go anywhere when I was a kid driving around the state of Iowa on a Saturday when Jim Zabel wasn't going totally bonkers with his "I love it, I love it, I love it" with the Iowa Hawkeyes. But yeah, those voices of those iconic radio guys, that is something to be said. Well, here's one thing that I miss. I miss 1:30 kickoffs. I miss that 1:30 kickoff where 1:30 Eastern time. That's when most of the teams out there started, and 1:30 Central. And it kind of worked its way through. And, after your game was over, you might be able to catch the second half of, a game from the West Coast. And then, eventually they might have an evening game. But I tell you what, I do not like 11 o'clock games. I'm okay at times with night games. But that 1:30 was the perfect time of day to have a kickoff for college football. Greg, do you got what's one that you have, or have you been able to come up with one? Can't hear you, Greg. You're muted.
No, I was going to say I'm working on getting into the thing on my computer here. So as soon as the host lets me in, John.
Well, the dog is, the dog is this is a June podcast, isn't it? We're going to have 4 listeners on this one. My God, the dog decided to crawl underneath my feet. Now she's all over the place. Everything's going bonkers. What did you want? I just let you in.
Thank you. How about you guys fill a little bit more time while I get logged in?
All right.
I'll have one that's not as happy.
Okay, go ahead.
And that is our complete ignorance about the brain injuries involved with college football. And Marian Barber passed away recently at the age of 38. And I think he played for the Dallas Cowboys, which I'm not a Dallas Cowboy fan, but he played for the Gophers. And he played along with Lawrence Maroney, and the two of them together were probably one of the best tandem of college running backs in the history of the game. I think Glenn Mason was their coach, but he was fabulous to watch. And when they came out with a cause of death for him, it was kind of like everything they could do to not just say it was CTE, and now we're seeing, guys who end their lives, or they deteriorate to the point that they become a shell of themselves. And, back in the day, we didn't know anything about it. So ignorance was bliss. I hate to be a downer, but I kind of miss being ignorant.
Well, there's a lot to say about that. It's kind of like we lost our innocence, if you will.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tragic to say that, because, I have some acquaintances that know or knew Mick Tinglehoff, and, former Nebraska player, former player for the Minnesota Vikings, who, his mind, his brain was scrambled pretty good in his later years due to, the battering that he took, so to speak. But it was like, we didn't know about it. And yeah. Well, the next one I have, and Greg, I'm going to guess you don't remember this.
I'm going to guess that I don't remember a lot of this shit.
We'll see if John remembers. On Sunday mornings, if your parents didn't drag you to church, you could watch Notre Dame highlights with Lindsey Nelson. And
remember that.
What they did, and maybe it's because I lived in Iowa as a kid and wasn't that far from Big Ten country, Notre Dame country, I guess. But what they did is, overnight they would edit the Notre Dame game against whoever they played, and shorten it up into an hour show on Sunday morning. And
they had the Bob Devaney show, and the Tom Osborne show.
They ran this, they replayed the game. And, if there was a couple of series where nothing happened, Lindsey Nelson, I wish I could imitate his voice because he was really something, but, in further action, they move ahead, and quite honestly, that's, you'd hear of schools that I wasn't familiar with, Purdue, they play against Purdue and that type of thing. But, those well, I'll just leave it at that. So I kind of missed
They
that.
They did that with the Bob Devaney show. I remember the Bob Devaney show when I was a little kid.
Sure.
Where they'd ask Bob, what happened on this play? And Bob would crack jokes and we'd have a good time.
Do any coaches have coaches shows anymore?
I'm sure they do. I'm sure there's a PJ Fleck show there somewhere, because PJ Fleck would want to have a show called the PJ Fleck Show.
It's an hour of Fleck.
Oh, but did you come up with anything, Greg?
Yeah. Best I can come up with is in regards to this specific topic is a misspent youth, because growing up where I did when I did, we didn't have football around. Like the Rams didn't come around until the mid 90s, and nobody was following it or talking about Illini football this far downstate. So I don't. I remember my grandpa would have, because we're all Catholic. So if we happened to be over there, grandpa would have, the Notre Dame game on, in the afternoon. Like, that's the only team that would be on. But like, I think the thing that I miss the most about college football in my youth is that, like, the missed opportunities. I didn't take, we didn't watch those. I remember my dad, I want to say it was 92, 93. I remember my dad specifically was rooting for Nebraska over Miami. I remember that. And while I don't remember exactly why, I feel like I can pretty much base it on context of, like, oh, well, Nebraska plays the right way, or, something along those, like, cultural differences between the Midwest and the Southeast. So I remember that, but even then, I had no real knowledge of, at that time of the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I'm like, okay, well, it's football, and I don't, but it's not something that we watched. Like in my house, we watched Cardinal baseball, we watch, college basketball. I don't say this like to brag or anything like that, but like my dad, when he was in high school, he received a letter from Bobby Knight, gauging interest on his going to Indiana to play college basketball. And he ended up, obviously not going that path, which is probably for the best, because if he had, I wouldn't be here, or at least I wouldn't be this version of the person that I am. Depending on who you talk to, that may or may not be for the best also. But I digress. We didn't. So going back, like college football, while like I understood that it existed, it wasn't, it wasn't a priority in my house the way growing up, the way it is now. College football Saturdays. Now you mentioned Todd, or both you old farts in unison are like going back to, I missed when you couldn't watch your team every week and you had to listen to them on the radio, and we missed the iconic voices, and that better not be a digital radio. It better be analog. I want to turn some knobs like I'm tuning in Tokyo, if you know what I mean. Well, I for one appreciate the fact that I can watch Nebraska football, so I don't miss. I don't harken back to days before quality technology, but for me, I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, a college football Saturday with Nebraska Cornhusker football is the only time I sit down and have to watch something live, or maybe not. Because I don't even get to do that, but it's the only thing that I make a point to watch, before I jump on the internet. It's like a Marvel movie. I don't want the ending to be spoiled for me. I want to make sure that I can watch it. I want to have these raw, uncut emotions. But I didn't get any of that. Saturdays at my house were like, if it's summertime, it's go pull weeds. If it's fall, it's, go clean your room, things like that. Saturdays were for choring, it wasn't for sitting around watching TV.
You realize, Greg,
Mm-hmm.
you realize that the Nebraska-Oklahoma game in Nebraska was required watching, not just because of football, but because it was our wholesome, pure morality against them Satan-led, dirty, evil, cheating sons of bitches from Oklahoma This wasn't just football. It was a battle between good and evil. And too many times evil won. Won? One.
No, I do. I get it. But I guess what I'm saying is like, I'm really sorry that I missed out on all that. Like, so when you asked me, or when you posed the topic of, 3 things we miss, college football related from our youth, I'm like, I missed college football, kind of in its entirety. So, in right, even though Dad lives, a half hour that way, just because of my kids and things like, they're still active. Like, they still want to get out and do yard work. I'm like, y'all are retired. What the hell are you doing Monday through Friday? Let's sit down and watch a football game. But, he's nice enough to ask, who the Huskers are playing. And in recent years, he's also nice enough to not bring it up on Sunday morning at church when things likely don't go our way. But, I would kill to, be in my early 20s, we'll go with that for the safety of legality, early 20s to sit and watch a college football game on a Saturday with my dad and drink a couple cold beers.
Sure. Well, we got one more to go, and I'm going to go first because John's got the best one. And the best thing that he misses, and I would have to concur. But the number one thing that I miss, I guess, that I'm going to put in here would be I miss New Year's Day bowl games and that whole New Year's Day, the way that it was. And that started with the Rose Bowl parade. And then you had to make a decision, as to what was going to be the first game that you were going to watch. Cotton Bowl usually was on, maybe a couple of other bowl games. But then, the focal point was the Rose Bowl, of course, and, with all the beauty and the pageantry, because they didn't have another game scheduled at that time. So that was the only one on in that time slot. And then that evening, you would have the Orange Bowl, of course. And generally speaking, there would have been a Big 12 team at the time in that game, or a Big 8 team, and generally Oklahoma or Nebraska, or the two of them. And, sometimes they'd have the Sugar Bowl in the evening too. I think the Sugar Bowl moved. But I guess I missed that day because, you would plan your whole day. You would plan your snacks. You would plan everything. And you hoped for chaos. Because, there were usually, maybe 2, 3, sometimes 4 teams that at the end of the day could potentially be voted as the national champion. And no, it's not a pure championship, with like playoffs and that kind of thing. But boy, I'll tell you what, it could be awful riveting, when you watch those late games on New Year's Day.
I feel like there's something. Maybe it's the chaos theory but something that really compelling, about like, look, we're not drawing this out till the middle of January. We're not having because people complain about the playoff system. People complain about the BCS. I'm sure people complained about, this bygone system that Todd's talking about from the 1890s.
The bygone. Wow.
But to just, and this isn't me like, less football, that's not what I'm saying at all, but to know, we got 4 contenders, and by this time tomorrow, the sports writers or the coaches or whomever will have made a selection based on the outcomes of today. That would have been really interesting. It's unfortunate it was before my time because I'm so young.
Well, John, go with what you missed the most.
You keep banging something around on your desk.
What the hell are you hitting there, Todd? Jeez.
Things are just not lined up real well.
Oh my God, we're all having problems. It's your joints, isn't it? You need to start taking fish oil and glucosamine.
I do. And I did drink Spotted Cow tonight from New Glarus. So
I would say the thing I probably missed the most is Keith Jackson. Because I think Keith Jackson just knew how to. Keith Jackson, like Lyle Bremser earlier on the radio, Keith Jackson knew how to present a college football big game, I think, better than anybody who's ever existed. And the thing, I mean, he has his catchphrase of "Whoa, Nelly," but I think the thing that he did best is he knew when to shut up. And he knew when to let the game be itself and let the game take the center stage. The other thing he did for the world is he kept the arrogant son of a bitch sidekick, Bob Greasy, in place so he wasn't so much of a prick that he overshadowed everything. Because Bob Greasy, after Keith Jackson retired, was just like, oh my God, the pricks come out. And he was just a bucket of shit. But look at the announcers now. I don't mind. I don't hate Kirk Herbstreit, I think, as much as most Nebraskans do. I don't think he's bad. He's not Keith Jackson. But whenever I'm sitting there and I turn on TV and I go, I think I'll watch this SEC game for a while. Well, who's doing the fucking SEC game? It's Vern Lundquist and Gary Danielson. Jesus, those two. I got about 3 minutes into that or 5 minutes into that, and I have to turn off the sound because it's just. First of all, Gary Danielson, most of the time, I don't think he knows what he's talking about. He's just spewing fucking shit into the air and hoping it sticks somewhere. And then Vern Lundquist, I don't know. Just, I can't stand him. Well, I go literally, I want to kill something after about 5 minutes. Gus Johnson, you can love him. You can love him. You can hate him. I mean, he can get a little bit much at times. I think he does a good job. One of my favorite guys that nobody knows about is, who is it? Petros Papadakis. And I love him because he does not have a voice for TV or radio, but he gives hope to everybody like me who could never do that, that maybe we could be able to be a TV announcer at some point.
Well, he calls the game kind of like a fan too. I mean, he played the game, but there's a level of excitement, when he's calling the game.
Chris Fowler, I think, does a really good job. Reese Davis, I don't think he calls games much, but I think he's just even keel enough. He doesn't get in the way. And that's kind of, I think, what I want most from an announcer is they don't get in the way. Well, Gary Danielson, I think that's what drives me nuts about him is he just tries to insert too much of here's what's happening, and he's fucking not even close sometimes. And it's like, just shut up.
It's a completely different animal too. So I'm not at all equating my radio experience to being ESPN, SEC Network, Big Ten Network, Fox, anything like that. But when you're doing radio, you have to talk more to create the visual. There's a reason why you can watch a baseball game on TV and the announcers will say 50 words an entire inning because they're letting the pictures, speak for themselves. I have done, again, in no way am I equating one to the other, but I've done football broadcasts, basketball broadcasts, baseball, volleyball broadcasts as a one-man show. And that's both challenging. It was challenging, but it was so fun because, and I'm not taking anything away from people that I worked with, be it color commentators or anything like that. I have had some people step on my big calls and that's okay. At the end of the day, the good boys won. But you have to be, the statistician. You had to be the play-by-play, the color commentator, color analyst, all these things. There were times when I was up in Shadron, and after the game, I remember specifically at home games where I could still have some control and some immediate communication with the guy back in the studio. As soon as I got done with here are the post-game stats, I'm running down on the field because I'm going to find a player and I'm doing an on-field post-game interview right there live on the air. Things like that were tremendously I was going to say joyful, but I don't know if that's overplaying my hand. But it was a really fun to think that I left Nebraska in the end of 2006. So, I mean, it's been almost 16 years since I've been out of that beautiful state. But I don't forget where I was going with it. Anyway, no, it's a different animal. Radio to TV, like TV, you should talk less, not more. Right. I guess is what I'm going back. Bring it full circle for you, John. I'm sorry.
Well, the other thing about Keith Jackson, he became iconic when not every team was playing on television every week. I mean, he would have the feature game of the 3 channels. And, but his humility, that comfortable, syrupy Southern twang that he had, and his one-liners, the "Whoa, Nelly," and all of that kind of stuff, just kind of endeared him to people. But he was also incredibly knowledgeable. And we are so bombarded with information anymore. I mean, we know so much about. All of us being Nebraska fans, we know so much about the coaches and the players, and with all those little bit different storylines. Well, back in the day, that information wasn't readily accessible, but Keith Jackson could also wind some storytelling into, his broadcast from time to time. And it just kind of, opened your eyes to some neat things. So anyway, well, Greg, John and I have, we've fired our blanks.
Oh, got everything. Okay. We fired our blanks, Greg.
Okay. Congratulations on the blanks that you fired.
Anything, Greg, do you have anything that you'd like to discuss or quiz us upon or pontificate about?
If I'm being 100% honest, guys, no. No, I jumped in, when you were talking about Knut, the new, I think his name is Knut, the Knut. Yeah. Is it really Knut, or is the K silent? I hope the K is silent for his sake. The kid from Scotts Bluff.
Oh, Brock Knutson.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. That's generally the Scandinavian method of pronouncing that name. I'm not sure if it's going to be Knutson or Knutson. I guess actually it'd be if it's true Scandinavian, it'd be Brock Knutson. I mean, it is, it's Knut Rockne also. So
is that with the Finnish dialect or the Norwegian? Or
I want to say Knut would be Norwegian.
It's definitely not Swedish.
No.
And because
there's no O.
Well, yeah, but Swedish is bork, 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 bork. I feel bad that's the most that I can contribute to the end of this show, guys. I feel really bad.
Well, then, Greg.
Yes, sir.
Since I did such a crappy job with my intro.
I don't know what it was. What was your intro?
Just the typical.
It was great.
Todd
It was great. He did an excellent job.
Todd, I'm going to email my intro verbatim to you, or you can just pay a little closer attention when we do these.
It's not that I don't pay attention. It's that I don't remember things very good.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the 5 Heart Podcast, brought to you by CornNation.com, part of the SB Nation Podcast Network. Filling in for our host, our regular host, Greg Mahachka this week. I'm Todd Wolverton, joined, as always, by our founder and fearless leader, John Dam Johnson.
Glass. I mean, that is
he did the radio thing. It's not fair.
Well, okay, so then, Greg, teach me the get out of it.
I will do that.
Hey, you know what? Knut is actually German. I know you waited for this. Okay, let's move on. East Slavic? What the hell? Okay, anyway.
All right. Are we done, gentlemen?
Yeah. Oh, no.
All right, thumbs up all around. If we get a unanimous 3 thumbs up, then we're out of here.
Hey, I'm just checking to make sure we got through everything.
You didn't have anything.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. John, it's like launching a nuclear weapon. We have to all turn our keys at the same time for it to go. All right. Well, I have to thank Todd Wolverton because although he doesn't believe in himself as much as I do, I know he got the show off to a rip roaring start. So thank you, Todd. John, with the bandana, all I can say is don't go changing.
Do you guys think I should get a haircut soon?
Yes, I've been saying that for 2 fucking years.
Yes.
Why?
Because you're 60 years old.
I can do this.
Respectable 60-year-olds don't have long hair.
Oh, well, there's
You're
your
not
problem.
a tree hugger. You're not a biker.
There's your problem. I have no interest in being a respectable 60-year-old. Fuck that shit.
I'm also going to upset all the, 60-year-olds with long hair. So
Yeah.
I'm
At least 5 or 6 of us, maybe one listens to this podcast.
all I can say is I'm here to win. So thanks to Todd. Thank you to John. Thank you to you, the listener and viewer on YouTube, for putting up with us in the off season. All we can say is we are 2 weeks into June. So about a month from now, we'll actually have more important things to talk about. And if you want to help provide just a little content, I'm not asking you to do much, but leave a comment on the YouTube video or on Coronation on the article. Ask us a question. Leave a comment. Years back, you have to go back to, I think, the offseason of 2018. Haas and I counted down our 5 important things, like our 5 favorite Huskers of all time, or our 5. I'd have to do actual research. So, but like our top 5 Husker moments, things like that. I'd be more than happy to moderate something since my 5 are already out there. Moderate something for John and Todd. So get your list together, boys. We'll have some fun over the next couple of weeks. Is that a rubber band, or is that a very small condom?
It's a hair tie.
Okay.
You should go on.
By the way, you've heard it here first, folks. A hair tie will not make a successful condom. So that'll do it for this episode of the 5 Heart. Things were probably going very well and very respectable before I came on. So thank you to you, the viewer and the listener. So for John, for Todd, I'm Greg Mahochko. We remind you this week and every week that 5 Heart is all the heart you need. John?
Go Big Red.
Go Big Red.
There's a little unnecessary
Little
communism in your
little communism coming through.